Welcome to Cultural Fluency Makers. I'm your host, David Wellish. Each week, we welcome leaders to share how they stay ahead of the ever-changing consumer landscape. With today's cultural transformation, top brands need to understand diverse consumer segments from Gen Z, Hispanic, and LGBTQ+, to gamers, wine enthusiasts, and basketball fanatics in Iowa. Their marketing strategies require them to keep the pulse on their consumers, but also their brand in the category to continue to grow revenue for the long term. Cultural Fluency Makers is sponsored by Collage Group, the only cultural intelligence engine that provides brand and consumer insights on the why that drives consumer behavior and purchase decisions. Let's get started. If you could travel back in time, and this is for the younger audience who's seeking so much wisdom, professional wisdom these days, what type of advice would you give your 20-year-old self back way then?
I would say keep learning. I just recently went back and got an advanced degree, and it took 2 very hard years of work and sacrifice of time. Always be humble about the things you don't know. I think if I had, I've been very lucky in my career, very supported and grown into sort of these big roles that people think that they want. But if I hadn't, when I recently went back to school, if I hadn't been like, I don't know enough about this, like, especially in the analytics space, I wouldn't have gone back, made these incredible relationships, and deepened my knowledge in this new areas like AI. So always be humble about the things you don't know. And keep learning. There's so much that we don't know and so much to learn, and about culture, about the way other people live, about your own knowledge. So I would say that. I'd also still, I really love the passion message. I employ that in the way that I hire. Like, we really hire people, and some of our core questions are, what genres of television are you passionate about? Because we want to pair you with what you love. We expect you to watch a lot of TV in that genre, so we might as well pair you with what you love. And so I really believe that had that change in terms of how we give people their assignments on our teams and how we hire has made such a difference in how they show up, because they love what they're doing. And so I believe in that. It really has changed my life to really be in a place. I love content. It was always my passion to watch lots of TV and movies. And now I'm in a place where I get to help make it. And it's amazing. Same at Warner. I was very lucky there. So I think finding something you're passionate about and making that your career is such a gift, and it makes such a difference in your life. It makes it so much more bearable when you're going to spend like 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day at work. You have to love it. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth it in the end.
I think one thing I tell anytime I'm giving someone on my team reviews or whatnot, I think curiosity is one of the most important things to have. If you get stuck in just the day-to-day of your job of, I execute this is my only job, you're kind of just always going to keep doing that same thing, maybe one step up. Curiosity is what creates new questions, creates new opportunities, potentially explodes your career. Our CEO at LinkedIn, he had a great post that went viral, a couple of years ago. That was like, your journey isn't linear. People who had the most successful careers, it's the squiggle line. It's okay to try something and fail. It's okay to maybe take a job that's a little bit interesting just to see if it's going to teach you something. Some of the most interesting and fascinating people I've ever worked with had what I'd be like, and why were you here? And they're like, I did that for this, but I learned. And the thing that they brought back is what created and exploded a whole new opportunity where we are. We get very obsessed with that. There's a correct next step. I would say there isn't. See where things take you, network, speak with people smarter than you, and be open and curious to opportunities. And don't feel like one decision is going to change everything. There's plenty of timing room. You're going to make a lot of decisions. Some are good, some are bad. And sometimes the bad ones are what give you the best opportunity.
Growing up in an African-American household, quite often my parents never gave me a lot of praise. Like, they were very strict. They wanted me to do my absolute best. Why? Because they wanted me to have a better life than what they had. And I think in growing up in that culture, I doubted, I questioned, I grilled myself all the time. Um, Even to this day, I got some really good coaching from uh, my boss recently about I shouldn't be so hard on myself. But I feel as though I'm my biggest critic. And by doing so, I'm looking to make myself even better. So what I would give my younger self a little bit of advice is loosen up on yourself. Um, you deserve it.
That's great. Gosh, such a hard balancing act, right? You're here. It's just so, especially as parents. We have three young adults. The three of them are in their 20s, and I think like you, they would probably say, "Gosh, that was harsh. That was hard," but it's also what pushes. And so, you're right. Like it's like such a tough balance.
Absolutely. And I would never say that my parents didn't give me praise. I'm not upset about that at all. I actually understood what the why. Like they grew up in segregation in the 60s, and they wanted something different for me. And I truly appreciate how they gave me that drive and that push.
So we're immigrants, and so our kids were victims of the immigrant mentality and mindset, which in many cases, I think there's some similarities from a mindset standpoint.
My advice to my 20-year-old self would be patient and be intentional. Um, it's interesting because I would say that everything in today's society is made easier through social networks like LinkedIn. Things are always one click away. My 20-year-old self would have spent a long time writing a long cover letter or trying to figure out a way that I can have somebody open up a door for me to, try to get an interview. And I would say to anybody listening to your podcast, just realize that you're going to shoot your shot and people are going to tell you no, but don't let that change your drive or change your motivation for trying to shoot your shot with something. It's a lot harder to hear the word no, but sometimes you're going to come back even better and stronger. And that yes will feel that much better. And so patience is virtue, and not every single path is linear. And realize that sometimes there's going to be audibles and transitions and mulligans, and it's just part of life.
I think the real advice I would give, and this is maybe sometimes harder to hear or harder to deploy, but I must say, I think the hardest moments were always the ones that ultimately created the biggest opportunities. And there's many such episodes in my life where I say it was raining pretty hard, like, because I had a goal, I had a life post, and I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do, etc. And then boom, something happened, and it was completely changed, or relationships fell apart, or families were torn away, or jobs were changed drastically, right? And so these, I think, what younger generation, and we see this in our data too, is facing, right? Like, what am I gonna do about my career? I just went to university for 4 years, and then now AI is doing all this work. Like, but see it not maybe so much as see it as an opportunity to reinvent or think about how you can learn something new and maybe change your plan. Because I always then end up saying, like, when it rains, it feels bad, and it may not be always the right excitement, but the sun always comes after the rain.
I would probably tell her that it doesn't get easier, but you get stronger. I think, as you move up in your career, as you progress through different life stages, it becomes more difficult and more complex, but you become more experienced and you have more tools at your disposal to manage through the ups and downs of life.
Fantastic. So we get stronger. It's not easier, but we're better able to face that which comes our way. I couldn't agree with you more.
And you have more perspective, right, to appreciate all of those experiences, difficult and wonderful.
Somebody said to me, life, what is it? Life is not for beginners.
No, it is not.
I mean, it sounds repetitive, but it's absolutely to embrace the change. Speaking for myself personally, and I think many in the business world, the first response is too often, whoa, this is different. And I think if I were to go back and talk to myself at 20 years old or when I first was starting in the industry, it would be to embrace the change because it's never going to stop. There's always going to be new technology. There's always going to be new data. There's always going to be new capabilities. And if you want to stay relevant in the business world, in the insights world, or in the media world, you have to embrace those changes, not be scared of it. Find out how to leverage it for your own benefit, for your company's benefit, for the business's benefit. And I think that's something I've really tried to embrace over the last couple of years that maybe I didn't have that perspective a decade or two ago.
Yeah, back then, obviously, I was not this far along in my career, and I did not know much about how data works. But obviously, I would not give myself the tip to learn more data. But what I would do is, what I would say to my younger self is, go with the flow. I mean, control what I could control, and put my best forward and hope for the best results. There's a lot of things that's uncontrollable. As we just discussed, even in the context of companies, right? They can control what they see, what they know about the customer, the data that they see. But there are a lot of things that they just can't control, like cultural shifts. I think that's just much a wider thing than just, how you fine tune your strategy. So embrace the unknown and then go with the flow.
I would probably go back and teach him the importance of patience and of self-awareness. I will be the first one to say that I was really, really impatient then. And that, I needed to have more self-awareness of what I was doing, why I was doing it, ultimately what success looked like in all different facets of my life. And, those are two things that I think would have really helped me in my early 20s.
That's great. I wish someone would have given us those kernels back then. Much much needed. We're always in a rush.
Yeah.
When you know what the world is doing for you, you're rushing and you're not really reflecting as much.
I would tell myself to ask for the things I want and to really go after them with the full force of my energy, unapologetically. Because as soon as I started asking for things and, pushing myself towards them, things would happen more quickly than they did when I was not doing that. So I just, I learned over time that, instead of letting things happen to me, go and make the things happen. Ask the question, what's the worst that could happen?
So I guess have clarity of what you want and then go for it.
Yes, and it sounds very simple, but sometimes we don't ask for what we want. So go forth and do that.
I would say two things. I would say first, know what's important to you. I was chatting with a former student of mine on my way to work this morning and trying to help her sort out as she's looking for a job to think about this career path or this career path. And it all just comes down to you make those decisions by having crystal clarity on what's important to you. I have a list of 9 things that are important to me because I'm crazy and they're ranked by order, but I know what's important to me. They change over time, different places I've worked or different phases of my life, but I am so crystal clear on what's important to me. And then the second thing I would say is there's no substitute for doing the work. It's kind of a downer, but it is the reality. Like Lizzie is one of the hardest working people I know. I have so much respect for her. I love that I can pick up the phone and call her literally anytime and she will answer and she will have a thoughtful answer. When I look at role models like her and others across the league office, the thing that underlies all of them is that they're willing to put in the time.
Do the work. I love that.
So my answer actually proves how I am the yin to Radhika's yang, because my head went in the opposite direction to number one. I would actually say it's okay if you don't know coming out of school. You will figure it out. And I think a lot of the times people put a lot of pressure on themselves to know it, to know where they want to be 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. I think thinking about myself, I actually started off in finance at a hedge fund. When I knew I wanted to break into sports at the time, I thought it was in sales. Now I'm here. I would be terrible at that. I've definitely found a better seat for me, but I think it's okay. I think it's okay that you know, to your point, Radhika, you have some guide rails and some milestones that you want to go for, but it's okay if they change along the way. And it's about figuring out what resources, what tools are going to help you as you find that next step on your journey. But I'm with you. It's all about hard work. It's about attention to detail. It's about putting in those hours to really, really get yourself on that ladder and prove yourself to everyone around you that you are a really important contributor that they can't do without. So definitely agree with number two, a slight nuance to number one there.
I'd clarify number one is less about knowing what job you want and knowing the things in the job that are important to you. So the number one thing on my list of 9 things is I want to work for the best leader. The number 2 thing on my list of 9 things is I don't want to travel 50% of the time. Those are just non-negotiable, the 2 most important things to me. So that's what I mean. I think it's really hard if you're sort of newly graduating or early in your career. You're so tempted to make choices based on some of the shiny objects in a job description or that a company throws at you. You got to know what you want and what's important to you, but not necessarily, to Lizzie's point, exactly what job will enable that.
Those are kernels of wisdom. Clarity, hard work, learn as you go. Kernels of wisdom.
A couple things. So if it would be for myself, it'd be a little different, but I do talk to college classes and a lot on kind of market research or understanding research insights and stuff. And one of the things that I talk about is building your own brand, and making sure that that becomes your first kind of priority, is building your own brand and understanding what that means. And not just for like, you know, exposure self or marketing self, but it helps you understand kind of where you want to go, what you want to do. So I think that would still be my number one advice, is just, you know, what is your personal brand? What do you stand for? What keeps you excited? What keeps you going? And not leaving that behind. I mean, for my 20-year-old self, I would say, like, don't rush. It'll all happen. Don't worry. You know, I don't know why at 20 that I rushed so much to like, I'm going to work and get my, you know, my MBA at the same time. And now I'm like, why? What did it do? Like 1 or 2 years, like quicker in the workforce? Like,
That's great. I hear that so much, you know, that don't rush, less anxiety, go slower, be courageous. These are great.
I think I talked about work-life balance, really understand what that means. I think especially in agency land, people lose sight of that because it's about billing, it's about getting more work done. And I certainly did in my 30s when I had a young family. So I think it would be really know what work-life balance is and focus on health and fitness more. You know, it took me a little bit longer to recognize I feel better when I work out and don't eat and drink like not supposed to. And that's really hard for people to get their head around until they're in that spot. But those would be the 2 things that I think hey, you're going to work hard. That's great. But, you know, there's a part of you outside of work that you need to take care of. And when you do that, just the whole self is more productive and you have better ideas and better thinking.
It's not the work your ass off in your 20s because in your 40s and 50s you don't want to. It's try to be more balanced throughout the journey.
I think it's work your ass off, but also, you know, be focused in what you're doing. So there's still boundaries, right? And don't be the guy that is, you know, billing the most hours every year. That's like the dummy award, right? It's like, get your work done, be intentional with the work, and then be intentional with the after work.
Well, one of them would have been, don't mistake early success in your career as not having huge opportunities to learn in different ways and be surrounded by people. We create signals for people when they're doing well in their career that everything is great. And I would have looked for a coach earlier. I would have looked for mentors earlier. I was fortunate enough to have some really great early experiences that allowed me to accelerate my career in a way that on paper, by our definition, were great. But looking back now, I think about just who I could have been, and the definitions that I would have defined what successful in a career looked like would have also been different in terms of not just the results you put up when you're early in your career, but getting depth of understanding on your leadership style, getting depth of understanding in your ways of working and your approach. I mean, all those things could have accelerated other aspects of my career that I think took a little bit later in life for me to come across some of those things.
That's a wrap on another episode of Cultural Fluency Makers. Thank you for joining us. Please share your comments and what you would like to hear more about. Be as specific as possible. For show notes and more, please visit culturalfluencymakers.com. This show is proudly sponsored by Collage Group, unleashing the power of cultural intelligence to fuel brand growth. Please follow Collage Group on LinkedIn, and we will see you next week.